Will Washington, D.C.'s new marijuana law break the world? I'm Jon Deer for Blob Law, and today we talk about the potential global impact of Washington, D.C.'s new marijuana law, which legalizes the recreational use of marijuana in the nation's capital. This is a tangled story of one man's enormous influence over many decades, which comes around in a big and surprising circle. From the very beginning of the American colonies, around 1916, farmers grew hemp as an important crop. Even our founding fathers grew hemp. It was one of George Washington's most important crops. In those days, hemp was used for clothing and fabric. In 1860, New York became the first state to regulate cannabis. After the turn of the century, many other states joined in, and in 1930, a prohibitionist named Harry J. Anslinger launched a campaign against the use of what he called marijuana. In those days, it was spelled with an H. Anslinger was appointed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt to head the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. Ironically, Roosevelt had run on a platform of promising to repeal prohibition, which he did. Then he staunchly supported Anslinger's efforts to prohibit use of marijuana. Anslinger quickly secured the passage of a substantial marijuana tax. The law carried with it criminal penalties. The tax was so excessive it was intended to put growers out of business. It allowed for incarceration of those who continued to grow anyway, forcing all marijuana growing underground. On October 1st, 1937, the very day the law went into effect, the Federal Bureau of Narcotics arrested this man, Samuel Caldwell, who was convicted of not paying the tax and spent 4 years in Leavenworth Prison. Anslinger continued to serve as the nation's drug czar for an astonishing 32 years into the 1960s, shaping the government's attitude towards marijuana. Near the end of his reign in 1961, under his guidance, the United States entered into an international treaty known as the Single Convention on Narcotics. The convention was an agreement between all signatory countries to criminalize and prohibit the growing and processing of many controlled substances, including marijuana. By the 1970s, less than a decade after Anslinger's tenure, some states had already begun to take steps to decriminalize the use of marijuana. Although the federal government continues to classify marijuana as a Schedule I substance, which means it has no beneficial use and is highly dangerous, that view has been thoroughly debunked. Medical experts who study marijuana recognize that it has actual and potential uses for the treatment of serious diseases. As of today, 28 states have decriminalized or legalized some form of marijuana use, from medicinal use to responsible recreational use, much the same way adults are permitted to use alcohol. But the influence of our old friend Harry Anslinger remains strong. By signing the Single Convention on Narcotics, the United States agreed to never legalize marijuana. At the United States' urging, 184 other countries also signed the treaty. The U.S. has been waging the so-called war on drugs across the globe ever since. And that places the United States in a predicament. The nation's capital has legalized marijuana in direct violation of an international treaty. Either the United States must withdraw from the treaty, must ignore the treaty altogether, or must strike down D.C.'s new law. Remember, the District of Columbia is not a state. Rather, it is a district established to house the federal government, including Congress, the Supreme Court, and the President. As such, Congress is given final authority over D.C.'s laws. So although D.C.'s marijuana law passed by a margin of 10-1, Congress could strike it down. Already, some in Congress are initiating efforts to undo the law. However, many predict Congress will simply ignore the international treaty and allow the local law to stand. It's hard to predict the global implications of D.C.'s marijuana referendum, but already many countries are asking why they continue to sacrifice blood and treasure to maintain prohibition of marijuana. So the answer to the question, will D.C.'s law break the world, is maybe. Just maybe. What do you think? Feel free to tell me in the comments. If you like this episode, be sure and share it. That's what keeps us alive. You can also check out our Facebook page and mostly subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm Jon Deer for Blob Law. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.